Spinal column, when you alternate breath intentionally, drawing energy up from the earth and down from the sky in alternating cycles, you are quite literally creating the conditions of an alternating current in a wire. And if you remember anything from high school physics, here's the critical part. An alternating current generates a magnetic field. A magnetic field attracts and repels. You want to attract your goals? You need to become magnetic to them. Not push toward them, not chase them down. Become the field that pulls them in. That is what the breathwork practice Yogananda describes is actually doing. It's not mysticism for its own sake. It's the supercharging of a system. You bring in oxygen-rich energy, you expel stagnant waste energy, and you build the internal field strength that makes attraction possible. This is the first half of the science. Master the three planes, physical, mental, spiritual, and you clear the channel. The antenna is now aligned. But the yoga literally translates to union. The entire 8-limb path, every practice Patanjali laid out, is aimed at one thing, erasing the boundary between your interpersonal intention and that larger outer intention, becoming so aligned with it that the separation disappears. Now here's how this shows up in ordinary life, because I want you to see this in something you've already experienced. Have you ever obsessively checked your phone waiting for a specific message? You keep picking it up, setting it down, checking again. The more desperately you refresh, the more that silence stretches out. But then one day you get genuinely absorbed in something else, a conversation, a project, a walk, and when you finally glance at your phone, the message is there. The thing you were waiting for arrived the moment you stop treating its arrival like a crisis. That's not a coincidence. That's the mechanics of outer intention. Your attention energy, when locked in obsessive monitoring, creates a kind of interference. It signals loudly that you do not have the thing, and that signal is what the field responds to. Simple. Remove what inflames you, keep what feels good, and stop manufacturing stress over the optimization process itself. Now the mental plane. This one is where most people unknowingly sabotage everything. Where is your attention right now in your actual life? Because if the answer is on what isn't working, on what hasn't happened yet, on the gap between where you are and where you want to be, you're broadcasting from lack. And that broadcast is what the field is responding to.
Must arrive with zero need for recognition from any power structure at all. The archon of hierarchy cannot hold what he has nothing left to prove. Now, the third gate, this is where the soul must demonstrate that it has fully shed the garment of aggression and domination that it picked up on the way down. You can't carry Mars through the Mars gate, so you gotta get rid of it. And at the fourth, this is the most provocative one, the soul must prove that it can tell the difference between reflected light and the real thing. So as you go deeper into esotericism, this will make more sense, but even illumination itself becomes a test here, and you need to know the difference. At the fifth, the soul must show complete dissolution of attachment. That is the belief that what it needs is somewhere in the material world, needs to be completely gone. Okay, your satisfaction, your fulfillment, your salvation is not a worldly thing, it comes from beyond. You need to know it here. At the sixth, the soul must move beyond language entirely, beyond articulated belief, and beyond the chattering mind. It is pure knowing or nothing. And then at the seventh and final sphere, the soul sheds the last thing it's been holding on to, its biological identity, everything that it thought that it was in this life, full ego death essentially, and that's what it takes to cross the seventh gate. So the Gnostics weren't writing mythology, these texts were written as survival manuals for the soul after death, and the passwords aren't arbitrary either. As you can see, each one requires the soul to prove that it actually shed what that sphere put on it when it descended into this life. So you can't fake your way through. The checkpoints measure exactly what you became, and not what you believe, not what you said, but what you are according to the Gnostics. So
this way, the ones that's able to that's open to receive the energy, those are the ones that's going to be able to walk into the Christ energy. So it's really a consciousness. It's not subjected to a demographic of people. A lot of people like to believe that, oh, I'm a god because I got melanin, or I'm a god because I come from a specific Canaanite background. A lot of people like it's a consciousness that basically interfaces with your Ethereum energy, because the universe doesn't read skin color, it reads frequency. It's kind of like the same thing when you watch the movie Predator.
Powerful. That's so true, man. I think we get caught up in these meat suits a little bit too much.
Yes.
Obviously there's a race of people that have been completely obsessed with the way that our melanin reflects sunlight, and a lot of our natural abilities have really kind of peeved them so much so that they've gone around the world and taken over most of the planet. But at the end of the day, from a more higher level conscious being looking down at us, it's all about really what? It's all about our energy. It's all about our vibration, our frequency. On a universal scale, universal level, I agree with you 100%. On the God consciousness level, which brings back the return of the Christ consciousness to this planet and even throughout the universe. I believe it's a way of being. It's a mindset. It's a conscious vibration that taps into that God energy, that creative energy, and that to me really is the second coming. I don't think there's a person coming back. I think it's the Christ consciousness returning to mankind to help us usher us, heal ourselves internally and take us back. We take ourselves back into a new golden age. We begin in some way at that point manifest on earth. Yes.
That's a fact, and I'm glad you brought that up because especially during this time period, because it happens every 24,000 years. You had the star Regulus in alignment with the Sphinx in Egypt, and then when you get into the inception of the word Easter, it comes from the word Ishtar in ancient Kemetic spirituality. That is actually Isis. So that means that there's a feminine energy to the planet, because the whole apex of spirituality is really it's basically feminine energy. So when we talk about feminine energy, it's not all about subjugating the vibration of masculinity. It's all about two energies, divine feminine and masculine, being able to coexist with each other during the time of when you have a fifth dimensional civilization, during the time when you have heaven interfacing on earth. So yeah, right. I agree with you. I believe that it's all based on the energy of your nervous system, because your nervous system is cultivated by your neurological faculties, because like I said, it's based on heaven and hell. It's a state of consciousness. So whatever consciousness you're on, let's just say you're a low vibrational person, you're doing all this degradation on the planet. When you pass away, you're going to go, because the sun and the moon are just basically celestial bodies, but in simulation, these are portals. The moon is a portal for reincarnation, and the sun is a portal for ascension to get right back to the star Polaris outside the firmament. That's why I said everything mimics the energy of a Masonic tracing board. When you look at a Masonic tracing board, the steps don't go to the moon, Jack and Bo is the pillars of severity, mercy. It doesn't go, the steps go straight to the middle. That is the path of the middle way, the galactic center, the North Star Polaris. That is the true spiritual sun that's outside the firmament. It is so a lot of times, like I said, if you're a benevolent entity and you did a lot of great on this planet and you live without your purpose, you get ascension rights. That means that your essence and your soul and your spirit is going to get transmutated through the sun. And a lot of times, a lot of us is incarnated. When you get into ancient spirituality, they also talk about horizontal gene transfer, because they knew that certain entities was going to be incarnated on the planet, and they wanted that energy to basically house the vessel of a certain person. So they did like horizontal gene transfer, and it's based on three methods: conjugation, transformation, and transduction. So it's basically a resurrection process that happens.
Okay.
Basically talking about the dualistic energies of the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain, to where it basically creates this energy of the activation of the neuron fibers, which makes the brain tighter. Right? You can't be holy until you use your whole brain. A lot of people don't understand that. Just like in the movie Lucy. Lucy, she wasn't able to manipulate her reality. She was able to manipulate, go through the simulation and coding in the movie, because she was tapped into a certain frequency neurologically. She was tapped into an energy of mind science technology, to the point where she wasn't able to need a body. So all these movies, such as The Matrix, Lucy, they're telling you that we live in a simulation, but the only thing that can basically free yourself is, neurological activation of what I call the Christ energy. So that's why, Jesus, the Bible, he was crucified on Mount Calvary on the place of the skull called Golgotha. The place of the skull, when you're talking about hollow earth, is within you. So like I said, you have to escape mentally in order to escape and break the matrix. That's why Neo is actually the neocortex. Like I said, planet Earth this is basically like a training form for ascension. You know what I'm saying? So just like when you look at a Masonic tracing board, the steps don't go to the two pillars, they go to the middle. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where you got to be in a state of evolution. You got to go from neophyte, adept, to master. So the administrators, they're going to put you in alignment to where you're able to master this realm. And they do it through you by, the activation of the neutrinos, because the neutrinos, when you talk about angels, you're talking about angles of light or angels of light. They come down at 90-degree angles. So that's why when you go to the Temple of Seti in ancient Kemetic spirituality, the Temple of Seti was in dedication to Osiris, and they showed the monolithic structure that shows a 90-degree angle. It's like an L, because the 90-degree angle is what makes you a Elohim, an L. It literally makes you that. So these neutrinos that's coming in, they're interfacing with you. So the ancestors is working through you only if you have the ability to, receive the information or receive the activation. So like I said, the ancestors are the administrators, but they will work through you if you're open to receive, the energy.
Right, exactly.
They're actually called Holy Ghost particles. So these Holy Ghost particles is what activates the black dot within you that makes you interface with mechos. And a mecho is a magnetospheric, externally collapsing object that basically takes you to a different space and time. It's a black hole. So the black hole in itself can basically be a form of the activation of consciousness, you waking up neurologically and stepping into a different, reality. Like I said, during the time of the sun cycle, what happens is that you have an unraveling of your DNA. It goes through a recalibration.
God runs the world. Then under that, you got 1,000-year-old families Medici. Under that, you have the Vatican. Oh, under that, you have the financial groups that control all this shit. BlackRock, Vanguard. After that, you have Putin. Trump, you have all this shit. And after that, you got what all this shit is. Entertainment. Hollywood.
Entertainment. Mind
Take
control.
that, run that.